Hey there, in today's video I have a very quick, I want to say, art journal project that just has a little bit of collage and then some big bold marks. And so it's something that you can probably do in 10 or 15 minutes maybe, if you even allowing for dry time. Well, maybe longer if you allow for dry time, but it's something that will spur you on to something else. I feel like just the action of getting your creative mind and spirit in movement will then spur you on to do some other things. So I hope that you will give this a try and see what kind of big bold marks you can make on top of collage. It's very simple, it's very easy. So anyway, without further ado, let's get started. To get started, I've grabbed the things that for this very simple project is some old patterned paper used, in making clothes. I mean, they still have it and it probably still looks exactly the same. Most of my patterns are vintage, but that doesn't mean you couldn't just use new ones as well. And I have an art journal and I have some matte medium. So, I typically, when I use matte medium, I tend to use my older brushes. I do like a wider, this is a 1-inch brush, just because it can get kind of gummed up. So that's just a tip. If you have an older brush, I would recommend using that. A lot of times though, I also just use a color shaper because it smooths it out, but I had grabbed my Catalyst wedge. I mean, I have my color shaper at hand as well. And so we're just gonna get started and laying down a layer of this pattern paper. There's not gonna be any rhyme or reason to it now that I've dropped it all on the floor. So I'm gonna set it off to the side. I think some air is blowing. And I think I might start with a larger piece. But here's the other thing. I have this art journal. Geez, I can't get these out of my way. Kind of with bull clips here at the end because it's not wanting to lay flat. So hopefully I can take those off because I want to cover all the edges. Now, one other thing I'm going to grab, and I have them right here handy. Now that I think about it, a lot of times what I'll do is put, maybe it'll lay flat now that I've had that like that, this deli paper in between. So this is nice thick paper. This is a new art journal for me and I almost didn't grab it because, okay, well, first things first. I put the deli paper in between or a large sheet of paper. It could even be one of these. I'll grab, like I have this old music paper, which actually might work better, so that it doesn't get onto the page below. Does that work better? That might work better. So I think I'm gonna do that this time. My other comment was, because obviously I'm talking about two different conversations. So I put deli paper, or in this case, this music paper, so that the page below doesn't get any of the matte medium on it. That we're hopefully on it is the goal. And this side still wants to bounce up. So initially, I think we'll just start with having that on. The other thing I wanted to comment was this art journal is new. I'm getting away from the spiral bound, and I almost didn't use it today because it has already become very precious. I think because it costs maybe a little bit more. I can't even remember. I don't think it's that much. But then I was like, oh, I don't want to use it. I want to save it for something good. When does that happen? So the minute you think something is, you're going to save it for something good means you're never going to use it. So I decided, nope, today I'm going to use it for this project because immediately when something becomes precious, then it's like what? It's put on a shelf and I'll never pull it down. So it's not, it's not precious. So I think it's a Berman. Anyway, I will link below what it is, and so you'll know. So okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to use a container. I'm going to pour my matte medium just straight on to the page here, and I'm going to get a good kind of covering. I like to. You wouldn't have to. In fact, if you're in a place where it's super hot and dry, you may just want to do small sections, or if you're working on a really large substrate, you wouldn't probably want to do this. But I like putting a nice coat down, and then I am going to have to add more, but I find that the first coat, I feel like it really sinks into the paper, and so you have to really work it. Now, the nice thing about this thin paper, this pattern paper, is that it is thin and it will go down really very easily. And I'm going to put some right at the edge. Maybe I will use my color shaper. So I wanted to get right in that crack. And I do not mind like that fold right there. What I don't want is any air bubbles. So I'm going to grab some more. I'm going to be very generous. I'm going to be very generous with my matte medium so that it glues down nicely. And you can see I have a few wrinkles, which I actually like. I think it adds interest and texture, which I'm a super big fan of texture. Okay, so then I'm going to add another piece. Now what I am doing is, I don't know if you noticed that on the last piece, I'm putting it down upside down, only because I want the dark to show through, but I don't want it to be quite as dark, even though it is quite dark. And then also the numbers are a little more, I don't know if muted's the right word, but they're not like, oh, that's a 10. I want it to look like a number, but it doesn't have to be so blatantly a number, if that makes any sense. Which, as we know, when I start making stuff, I often, one, don't complete my sentences. I find when I'm editing my videos, it's like, oh, I did not finish that sentence or that thought. So there's always a little bit of crazy talk in these videos. And I'm gonna fold this back because I actually want some darker sections along with some of the lighter sections. So, and if you notice, I am trying to go right up to the edge. You wouldn't have to, it doesn't matter, but for this project, I really want it as covered as possible. So I want all of it covered. And then I'm also gonna layer some of the pattern, the tissue paper, so that there's areas that are darker and areas that are a little bit lighter, so that there's some variation. So, and this, you know, like I said, is a fairly simple project, but so it's just a matter of picking and choosing your pieces, which to me, there's no rhyme or reason because it's just like, it's a base layer. And then I'm gonna put something over the top of it. So let's see, over here, let's put that right in the corner. And as you can see, like I'm trying to line up the edges. I don't really want to have any white showing. So I may have to go back, like up here. That didn't line up because I wasn't as particular as I want to be. Oh, look at that circle. Let's put that one right there. So there's some interesting pieces, particularly if someone has, if it's already used, which I think is kind of cool. Then it's cut out in different shapes. You're like, oh, what did the person make? All right, let's get this top section. And if you do not have pattern tissue paper like this, which is perfectly fine, this you could also use like book paper. What I'm going for is I want this a slightly brownish patina, I guess is for lack of a better word. And the way I found to get it is I love using pattern paper to get kind of this muted color. If you used like vintage book pages, that would also work. If they weren't vintage, you could still use book pages. You would just maybe add like some burnt umber or raw umber and do a wash and get it kind of a muted, or even maybe a yellow ochre might give you this kind of color. So you could mess around with it and see what you had. So certainly don't go out unless you're already headed to your thrift store, because I think these are all over the place in thrift stores. But anyway, you don't have to use that. You could also paint. There you go. You could paint it this color. Now, what I'm liking is the variation. So that would be the piece that is missing. With paint, you're not going to get the variations, nor are you going to get, let's see if I can cover all of that. You're not going to get the lines and some of this other interesting stuff, which I think is kind of fun. But you could do it that way as well. And just get the basic gist of this, because all I'm going to do after this is use black paint. Once you see the project, you'll be like, oh yeah, I could use anything for that, which of course you could. So I'm going to use this little scrap here. Okay, now there is some variation. This is really heavy, a little bit darker over here. So I want to add a second layer down here. Maybe I'll tear this. And again, I don't really have much of a plan other than I want some variation in color. And so to do that, I'm just going to make some layers. Because as you can see, now I have some lighter, and it looks like I have another edge here. So let's see if I have a straight line. I do. I'm gonna pull this over and see if I can get some more matte medium down here. Okay, now I'm probably making this look harder than it is. So do not overthink this. And if you miss a spot or two, it's perfectly fine. I'm wanting all the white to be gone. So that is not, it's not something you have to do. Okay. And honestly, because there's a little matte medium down, some of it I don't even have to put any more matte medium. It's already kind of slightly sticky, and it goes, the matte medium, this is so thin, and matte medium goes right through it. I think I will put a piece here, and I think I'm gonna call that, good. I don't know, some of these, maybe a little bit more. Just to break up those pieces. It felt like it was all in one area, and which is okay. But okay, I think, well, I say that and then I'm like, okay, last one right here. I do have a few more pieces I could add in if I wanted, but I think I'm going to leave it. I think I'm going to leave it at that. So I actually have one that I've already done that's dry, so I don't have to wait for this to dry. And then I'm going to show you the next step. But really, this wouldn't take that long, and you could certainly use a heat tool to dry this, and then be ready for the paint that's going to be coming next. Or you could just let it dry, walk away, and get a cup of tea or something, and then come back to it once it was dry. So I'm gonna set this aside, and we'll come back with the next one. Okay, so here's the dried piece, and this is in another art journal I have, one that was a little more inexpensive, the Arteza, and I had never tried either one of these before, and so far I really think this is it's great. And so anyway, I'm very happy with this, and I don't feel like it's as precious, and so that's a win for me. So okay, so this is dry. I have just gotten out some carbon black. Now listen, you could use any dark color probably for this, Payne's gray, even a raw umber, depending on what kind of effect you're going for. But I'm just keeping this as simple as possible because I just wanted to do a fast project, and this is one of them. So I have a wide, like 1 and maybe a ½ inch brush, and I put my carbon black in a little container just so that I can, versus working off the table or pulling out a whole palette just for this one color. So what I'm going to do is, now I'm a little nervous on camera, is I'm going to make some big bold marks and leave it at that, and it's going to be, hopefully, it's going to feel like that's enough, because we have this brownish, light tan colored with a little bit of black text and lines in between. And so that's my idea. So, okay, I know I'm feeling afraid, but let's just go for it. So I want that to kind of swing out more like that. Okay. And then maybe I want to put some marks here, okay, and maybe a little mark there so that there is something going around. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that, but I feel like that's enough. So it's as simple as that. I think I might take my catalyst wedge, because I do like things to be slightly messed up. So I might try to slightly mess this up just by pulling the paint a little in and out. So then it feels, now this up here feels like I'm not sure what I did there. So that feels kind of weird. But I think you kind of get the gist of it. Like, it's as simple as just making some big bold marks and then seeing what happened. Now I don't like how that turned out, so it doesn't matter, right? Because I could do this project over and over again. So if I don't like the way it turns out, I can do it again. So I think I like that better. And if you don't like it better, then just practice doing it over and over again. And let's see. Okay, so I'm fiddling with it, which I wouldn't do except for I'm on camera with you guys, and so I feel like I have to make it look as good as I can. So anyway, do a big bold mark, maybe put some smaller marks around so that there's a place also that the eye wants to go, and that's it. You could, and I wasn't thinking I would do this, you could bring out something like this and make some marks into it, do some scratches, do some lines, just to make something more interesting in the paint. So there's that too. Anyway, okay, so I just want to show you a simple project, and not to belabor the point, but do something bold and then just see what happens and then step away from it. So anyway, have fun. I hope this inspires you to do a quick summer project, or if this is the winter and you're watching it, or whenever you're watching it, if you just need a quick project, this is that. It gets your body moving, and in terms of, you know, being big and bold, which I think we tend to be more timid and work smaller. And so this is a great way to work big and bold in your art journal. So, okay, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.